So that sense that you have, is that what compelled you to get into politics? You've been a member of the Liberal Party for close to a quarter century now, I believe. Are those senses of urgencies what compelled you to get into politics, and is there a particular reason why you chose the Liberal Party as opposed to other parties?
Yes. There comes a point in time where you say, okay, how can this service be channeled better?
Mm-hmm.
Because you do volunteers in various organizations in causes you believe in, and there are hundreds of thousands of Canadians who every day work as a volunteer, and they do extremely valuable work, which unfortunately is not quantified in any GDP calculations or economic computations, but they create huge amount of value for society. But at some point when you are a person of ideas and those ideas develop in your head, you would like to say, okay, how can I channel this to better influence the longer term societal directions? And the only way that it can happen in democratic societies is through political activism. I have been a volunteer for the Liberal Party and a member for many years. I've worked in the Ahuntsic-Cartierville riding in various settings, in all election campaigns, both as a technical person on computers, to door to even judicial representative for the ballot boxes and so on. But I think the main impetus for me has been that at some point I looked at an intellectual contribution. And why I chose the Liberal Party is for a simple reason, because I believe that the policies of the Liberal Party are closest to the ideas and aspirations of most Canadians, actually. And of course I'm biased as a Liberal, so I would say that, but I think the proof is in the pudding. So if you look at the history of Canada, this is a country which is almost a century and a half old. It's going to celebrate the 150th very soon. And within 2/3 of that time frame, it was the Liberal Party that governed this country. It was, and the other 1/3 it was the Conservative Party. But the vast majority of the history of Canada has been under the governance of the Liberal Party, which has implemented a lot of the programs which we now take for granted, with the help of other parties as well. I don't want to say that this is solely the achievement of the Liberal Party, because that would not be true. So nobody forced Canadians and held a gun to their heads and said, you have to vote Liberal. Assuming that this is a democratic country, Canadians voted Liberal because they found in the Liberal Party the realization of their personal aspirations. And Canadians are I would say, a very strange kind of citizens. And strange, I said it in a positive sense, because if you look at this country, it's very difficult to say why even this country should exist, because this country has so many forces that are trying to tear it apart. There's always, okay, it's Quebec against the rest of the country, the French against the English, the East against the West, it's the rural Canada against the city folks, the people who live, across, most of them who live at the border, 100 kilometers from the border with the US, versus the vast north, the Aboriginal versus the non-Aboriginal. So it's always something versus something else. So if you say, well, if there are all these conflicts and contradictions, and they're trying to tear this country apart, why is it still together? I mean, it does not make sense. Well, if you think about it, there is something very important why this country exists and why it is one of the best countries in the world. Not by our measure, by the UN measures. And that reason is because Canadians every single day want to be together. Mm-hmm. If you do not want to be together, this country would not exist, because the forces would tear it apart. But we want to be together. And wanting to be together means we always want to understand the other. Who is the other person among us? And this is a very sophisticated way of thinking about your own citizenship. And I believe that the Liberal Party is a party that takes advantage of that. It provides the glue, the intellectual and political glue that puts all of that together. And that's why I've chosen the Liberal Party.
even though it seems to be challenging these days, considering some of the, let's say, some of the negative publicity recently surrounding the Liberal Party, you decided to take a chance and run for this riding now.
Well, listen, this does not mean that the Liberal Party is by any measure innocent of all kinds of wrongdoings. No, we have made historical mistakes. But what I'm offering is offering myself as a candidate of someone who has been there in the good times and in the bad times. I was there when we were extremely successful, and I was there when we were abject failures, and I helped rebuild the party. So it's very important that you come with specific set of credentials, that you are a liberal by conviction. You're not a liberal of the last minute. You're not a liberal of opportunity because you want to be elected. You have been there and have contributed to the rebuilding of the party, and I was there doing that. And my contribution was actually at the most fundamental instance of the party, because I became a member of the Policy Commission in 2006. And I am in extremely esteemed company of very, very smart people who sort of define the political direction of the party, and all the discussions end up there, and from there on move actually to the MPs. In 2010, I was appointed as vice president. In 2012, I was elected. I was the first non-Canadian born to actually be the president of the Policy Commission. And a few months ago, I was re-elected to that position. So it shows the trust of my colleagues in the quality of my work and my contribution to the party. And I have the respect of all the elected caucus, former ministers, the MPs, critics, parliamentary critics. They know me personally. I sit with them in meetings, and I'm also a member of the National Platform Committee. So all of these things are an ideological contribution to the direction of the party from a policy perspective. Policy is the long-term direction of where we want to be as a country, and that's why it's important. That's what interests me fundamentally.